80. So we got through basically half the Sicha. We have to get through the other half. We did a little less than we have to do. So we go a little faster. We just finished explaining that we're going to explain our issue based on the story of Nadav and Avihu. And Nadav and Avihu entered into the Mikdash Shasui Yayin, and the Rebbe at this point has explained that based on the Orach Chaim, that Shasui Yayin means having drunk of Pnimius Torah. Right? And now the Rebbe is going to explain that also includes Shasui Yayin and Gashmias. Hine, Pashut. It's simple, obvious. Shabir, the Shasui Yayin Nichnasu LeMikdash. Mikdash having drunk of wine. Loi ba doesn't come it doesn't come to take the pasuk out from its simple literal meaning. What's that? And also its contextual meaning. It's very clear contextually that they drank physical wine. How do we know? Well, because right afterwards it says V'yayin shechal teisht. It says don't drink wine and beer when you enter into the Mikdash. So obviously that's what they did. Their beer was not our beer. Their beer was generally date beer. Right? They had beer from hops, but generally their beer was date beer, and that's why the Gemara in Pesachim talks about people drinking beer on Pesach. Right? It wasn't chametz. Shari mefurish bekosav kanal. Shala'achris afterwards he's here to tari yain v'shech valteish. We just said iser the prohibition lishtes yain derech shechusay kepshutei. The prohibition of drinking wine in a way of drunkenness kepshutei. V'im kein al korchach. If so, you're forced, tzarech lemer, to say, shegam etzel nadav and avihu, also etzel nadav and avihu, haya inyan shel shtiyas yayin, there was an inyan of shtiyas yayin, kit begashmias, gam begashmias, meaning, yes, they sat and they learned Pnimius Torah very seriously. And then, they did that also evidently within the context of saying l'chaims, drinking wine. It was a famous old-time, what they call Balei Tshuva, by Professor Braver from Brouwer, from Montreal, wrote a couple of books, very amazing guy, scientist, professor in some university in Montreal. So when he got from, he started learning Chassidus with Beryl Mochkin, and at one point they went through Samach Vav 5 times together. That's how you know something. If you go through it 5 times, you'll know it. When did they do this? They used to stay up all night Thursday night and learn Samach Vav together for the Rebbe Shabbat. And how would they do that? This is not, this is, what do they say? Don't try this at home. I'm not saying this is necessarily what you should do, but they used to put a bottle of scotch on the table and they'd stay up all night, finish the bottle of scotch and learn Samach Vav. That's what kept them awake. And when they were tired, they'd take okay, and away they'd go. They finished Samach Vav 5 times together. He knew it backwards and forwards. Very, very special Jew. He's still with us, I think. It's older. So that's what Nadav and Avihu also sat with wine. They learned Chassidus and wine with wine. She'etzel Nadav and Avihu haisa shtiyas yain kapshutei keshura im gilui yain shabbatera. Their drinking of wine simply was connected with their drinking of the secrets of the Torah. Shalah Kadosh was a big Talmud Chacham who lived in Europe. He wrote a very, very famous sefer named the Shnei Luchos Habris. That's why he's called the Shalah. His last name was Horowitz, right? He's a Levi. He lived in Europe, big Talmud Chacham. He writes in Shnei Luchos Habris, he writes about the experience that he had with his fellows on Shavuos at night. They sat up and learned Pnimius Torah all night. They were planning to learn in a minyan. There wasn't a minyan. There were only 9 of them. One of them didn't show. They went to mikveh after learning all night before at Alos Hashach we go to mikveh, Shavuos night. They had a malach came to them and told them that if they were minyan, the great secrets would be revealed to them. So they decided to try to do the same thing the next night, but this time with a minyan. So they sat up all night and they learned. He writes this in his sefer. And the secret was move to Eretz Yisrael. So he moved to Eretz Yisrael and lived in Svas. Right? And learned Kabbalah in Svas. And wrote a sefer, Shnei Luchos HaBris, which is a very, very important sefer. Both terms of minhagim, certain halachas, mostly Pnimis Torah. The Zesher Matzino, he lived around the time of the Rizal. Right? That came from. Fine. You don't have. Oh, you have also. Okay, Baruch. I feel better now. I feel better. Feel better. Kamavur b'shalom. The Zesher Matzino, he explains relative to Nadav and Avihu. Zesher Matzino etzel kadeshim asher ba'aretz. He's describing what went on in Sfas 400 or 500 years ago. Sheshasu lifamim harbe yeser midai. That sometimes they would. Now, it's interesting the language he uses. Right? They would drink too much. He didn't say they drank a lot. He said they would drink too much. Yoter midai means too much. Now, I don't think that's a statement of chastising them. He's just saying they evidently drank a tremendous amount. Besudes gedolos, in great feasts. These are the mekubalim in Sfas. Why? Their intention was for the sake of heaven. Through drinking the wine, they would reach great states of joy. And joy opens a person up. And as a result of this, they would say words of Torah on the table, many words, and kiflaim l'teshir, meaning double portion. As as a result of the simcha, the Chacham reveals secrets of the Torah. Look in the Sicha, man. Look at the Rebbe's words. Don't listen to me. Read the Rebbe's words. Yeah.
I'm a little lost. That's like physically
where we are on the page 180, in the middle of the second paragraph on the right.
Thank you.
Where there's two dots. Right?
The first or second two dots?
So we're after the second. We're actually after the third.
All right.
Now we hit the fourth. Because of their great simcha, yischazik. What does simcha do? Yischazik hakayach hasichli. It empowers and strengthens the intellectual powers of a person. Sheyesh benefesh, that are in the soul. Vazu yesem muchan. Therefore he's more able and prepared. Legalois talumes chachma, to reveal hidden places in his chachma. So things which he might not normally understand, he'll understand. And that's what Chazal mean when they say, nichnes yain yotzasayid, that when wine goes in, secrets come out. In other words, it opens up a person's intellect so they can understand deeper and more sophisticated ideas. And that's what they would do in Sfas. Unbelievable. 400 or 500 years ago, they sing for bread. Shayadei mishta hayayin, by virtue of the drinking of the wine, yotzu divrei Torah, they came out, they went out. The words of Torah, the Nikrei Sod, that is called secrets, meaning Pnimis Torah. V'chein, so too the Rebbe says, just like the Shalah describes what went on in Sfas 400 or 500 years ago with the Mekubalim, the Arizal and his Talmidim. V'chein etzel Nadav and Avihu, so too by Nadav and Avihu. Shayu Kedoshim b'Yeser, they were very, very holy. Right? B'Yeser u'b'Yeser, extremely holy. As Moshe Rabbeinu says about them, B'kroi v'Yakadesh, right? We saw that earlier yesterday. That Moshe says to Aaron, that the Eibishter said, in those close to me I will be sanctified. And Moshe said, I thought it was you and me, but it was your sons. Shal Yedei Sheshosu Harbe Yesimidai, by virtue of the fact that they drank too much, Niglu Etzlam Razeh Atar Chigiu L'Chleis Nefesh. They revealed secrets of the Torah until they reached the state of their soul leaving their bodies. Now that is not desirable. The soul leaving the body is not desirable. But obviously coming to a state of such incredible closeness to a Kadosh Baruch Hu is desirable. But what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to go to that place and come back. They didn't come back. Based on this, we can also explain that this is what happened to Rabbi Zera in the Gemara. It was similar to the passing of Nadav and Avihu. The Masha Kosav, it says he shechted him. What does that mean he shechted him? Shechting literally means taking a knife to the throat, so that's obviously not what Rabba did. The Mashikosav Shachte Hainu Kamashikosav Marsha. Now, interesting enough, the Rebbe is going to bring those Perushim of the Achronim that he dismissed, and he's going to explain them in such a way that they also can help us understand the story. Meaning, if we learn them simply, they don't answer the questions. But once we learn them in the context of what the Rebbe is teaching us, so then they will help us answer the questions. There wasn't mean shachte, the agbara chamra, that the wine overcame him, and they lishtei siyasimida, and they drank too much. V'chala v'nata lamus, and he got sick and got close to death, which is what the Yavet said. Le'al yedei yayin agashmi, not through the physical wine. Elahainu kloisa nefesh. This is, he almost reached the state of kloisa nefesh. Matter of fact, we'll see that he actually did. Al yedei roiv shasiya, by virtue of his tremendous drinking of Gilui, the revelation of Yayin Shabbatara, Seidus Torah, by virtue of all the Torah that Rabba was revealing to Rav Zera reached the state of kloisa nefesh.
Can you explain kloisa nefesh?
The soul leaves the body. Mikol makim, ein zem meitzin midei pshita. This doesn't take it out from its simple literal meaning. Sha'isa shtiyas yain kapshita. They drank wine, Rabba and Rav Zera. Al derech anal b'nadav aviyu, just like nadav and aviyu. V'gam mises Rabbi Zera isa kapshuta. Also, the passing of Rabbi Zera was simple, that was literal. Which means what? What does it mean to pass away? Pirur the neshama mina guf mamish, the separation of the neshama from the guf. So we don't really use the word death, right? I mean, it's being used here, interestingly enough. But generally, we talk about petira. What does petira mean? That something's no longer connected to something else. It's no longer relevant to it. Okay, because Jew doesn't die; they just leave their goof. And the neshama goes somewhere else. It's no longer stuck in a goof down here in Elam Hazah. Now, obviously, we want to be stuck in a goof down here in Elam Hazah because that's what the Eibishter wants from us. That's why we're here. Peter the neshama mina guf mamish lo yiraki salfus. Not that he just fainted. No. That the passing Rav Zera was kapshuter. The Rebbe says he passed away. No more pulse. V'lochein svira leila Rabbeinu Ephraim, and that's why Rabbeinu Ephraim, who we saw earlier, who said that this whole story is teaching us not to paskin like Rava because of the negative reality of this story. That's why Rabbeinu Ephraim said, the Rabba of Rav Zera, because of the story of Rabba and Rav Zera, batal achiyav lipsume. It's nullified the obligation lipsume to drink l'chayim. So Rabbeinu, now we don't pass it like Rabbeinu Ephraim, but he was brought by the Ran and the Balamor. The Ran and the Balamor brought the Rabbeinu Ephraim and saying that this story is contradicting Rava. And therefore, we see the story really this happened. It's not in Gashmis. It's not in Ruchnius. It's mamish in Gashmis. It's not happening only spiritually. It's happening in physical reality. And what happened? So the Rebbe is now explaining that he died. But we stop and say, so what did Rebbe do? How can this be? So the Rebbe is going to explain it. Lefizem muven hated. Therefore, it's understood very well. She'in kan avizarayu shel shvichas daim chas v'shalom klal. There is no even accessory to the notion of murder. Chas v'shalom. Shari amisa isa kleisa nefesh. This passing of Rabbi Zera was, it's actually Rav Zera because he was still in Babel. He became Rabbi Zera after he moved to Eretz Yisrael. But here he's in Babel because he's hanging right with Rabba. He was in Babel. Shahari Amisa Isa Kleisa Nefesh. What was his passing? Kleisa Nefesh, his soul leaving his body, but Limud Seidus Torah Rabbi Zera, by learning all of the secrets of the Torah. Ubezem Muvuez Gam Ad Goshas Gemara, and this is why the Gemara says Ibsum Nishtakru. They got drunk. Nishtakru, not just Rav Zera, meaning Kam Rabba Shachta Rav Zera. So it says they got drunk and Rabba got up and shachted Rav Zera. So simple pshat, meaning if Rabba, if the pshat that you can't possibly say because you're talking about Rabba, but if Rabba shechted Rav Zera because he was in such a drunken state, he didn't know what he was doing. So why does it say they got drunk? Mm-hmm. The only thing that matters is Rabba got drunk. Mm-hmm. That's obviously not what happened. Oh, so they both got drunk. In other words, what? They both drank wine physically and wine spiritually. Mm-hmm. Both of them. Loshen Rabbi, Hainu. They both got drunk. Okay, so now what do we have to explain? What has to be clarified?
Drunk off water.
Well, we know what they got drunk on. Wine and Seder Torah. That's clear. What's not clear?
Why didn't Rabba have close nefesh?
Oh, exactly. You said. Why didn't Rabba have close nefesh? Why only Rav Zayda? Right? They both did the same thing, so only one of them experienced close nefesh. Not even a view, they both experienced close nefesh. Mashma sheshichra shneim, the drunkenness of both of them, Garma, caused Sicha Kam Rabba Likutei Rav Zera. Rabba got up and shechted Rav Zera. Not just the fact that Rabba drank, but also the Rav Zera drank. Ki lo yirak ma'aseo shel Rabba, not only the deeds of Rabba, Elo gam mises Rav Zera, also the passing Rav Zera, haisem mipnei, was because shehigia lematzav shel shichrus, that Rav Zera also reached this state of shichrus, hamevi lekleis nefesh, that ultimately brought him to kleis nefesh shel adam, and that the Rebbe is simply saying that this the pshat that we're saying that this is both physical and spiritual makes sense in simple pshat in the words, because if it's only physical, well then Rabba's the only. It only matters that Rabba got drunk, right? The only thing you can say about Rav Zera being drunk, why it's important, because he couldn't fend him off. Okay, but that's no. Other Rabba. This is all happening spiritually. Rabba and Rav Zera drank l'chayim's and learned pnimius Torah ad kedei kach that they reached a state of, at least Rav Zera, kleis nefesh. Now we have to understand why Rabba didn't. Gam mises Rav Zera ha'isem ibnei she'agia l'matzav shel shichris hamevi that brought l'kleis nefesh shel adam, that a person will be so close and so powerfully overcome by godliness that they'll lose connection to their physical reality. Elo, shezeh nasa be'al yedei Rabba. Somehow this was brought about through Rabba. Because what does it say? It doesn't say that Rav Zera reached Kleis Nefesh. It says Rabba shechted Rav Zera. So somehow this all happened through Rabba. Kam Rabba Shachtel Rav Zera. It'll come in Sivav, as we'll explain in the next paragraph, not Hey, but Vav. V'zeu techner shel asipra, and this is the content of the story of Rabba and Rav Zera, Abdu Sudas Purim Bahadi Adadi Ibsu. Now we can say Pshat in the story. We have to explain all the details of the story, but the simple Pshat in the story is what? Shtiyas hayayin shalahem, their drinking of wine, kepshuto, haisul, kavona, kanal b'shalah, was like that which the Shalah describes relative to the big tzaddikim in Sfas, which were 1100 years after the people we're talking about in the Gemara. Shemitech mishta hayayin. What happened? What did the Shalah describe? That as a result of their drinking wine, yizgale etzlam, it was revealed by them yayin shabbatara, the wine of the Torah, razei Torah, the secrets of the Torah. V'chein hayah. That's what happened. Shayadei shtiyosim besudazu, Rabba and Rav Zera. Niglu etzlam has revealed to them Seides v'razei Torah nailim b'yesur, but the loftiest, greatest, deepest secrets of the Torah. Ad latachli sa'ilu ida adala yoda, until they reach the highest state of adala yoda. There are people who say, the Rebbe says in footnote 33, the people who say that adala yoda is you drink and fall asleep. Right, so that's similar to this state of something akin to nevuah, right? That every navi other than Moshe Rabbeinu would fall asleep, would not be in a conscious state when he prophesied. Adala yoda, they would transcend the normal conscious. They transcended the normal conscious reality that we experience. Okay, but now we have to explain. Aval av sheshneim nishtakru, but even though both of them nishtakru, Mokim, nevertheless, top of page 181, Raket so Rav Zera ba mizeh kleis nefesh mamash. Only Rav Zera was brought to a state of kleis nefesh. Vatam, why? Ki Rabba hayalei seichel Rav Yosef. Rabba had a greater seichel than Rav Zera, making the godless. It's called making the godless. Very powerful seichel. Meaning Rava was a greater kli for the revelation of godliness that ultimately he brought about, because it says that Rava was the one who was the impetus of all this. So Rava was the greater of the two, and he brought Rav Zera to the place where he was, Rav Zera wasn't a kli for that revelation of godliness, and so his kelim burst. Whereas Rabba could deal with that level of godly reality and still stay connected to his guf, to his body. V'lochein.
So what you see before sages when they went to Pardes, like Rabbi Kaplan, and
100%. The Rebbe brought that. The nichna, we saw that nichnas l'sholem v'yotze l'sholem, right? That it was dafka because Rabbi Akiva entered in with the proper state of mind, so he also exited with the proper state of mind, right? Meaning, but he was a kli for all that, 100%. Everybody else went in and somehow wasn't able to come back. That's not of an avil, right? On a different level, but similar, right? 100%. Nichnas lepardes, went into a place of incredibly powerful understanding of godliness, and either died and went mishuga, right? Whereas Rabbi Akiva went in with the proper understanding that I'm going to this place in order to bring back that understanding into my conscious reality in Elam Hazah. So therefore he was Yotze L'Sholem, came out peacefully. Therefore, he was able to receive the fullest power and fullest expression of this revelation, of the secrets of the Torah. That was not the case of Rav Zera. He wasn't able to incorporate this into himself. Also in their names. What does the name Rabba mean? Big. What does Zera mean? Small. Rabba Maral Gadlus, the word Rabba in Aramaic is big. What's the word Zera? Zair Anpin, small. V'Zera Maral Gadlus, Miloshin Zaira. Oh. So Rabba had making the gadlus. Now this is all relative, right? Relative to you and I, Rav Zera's making is so big we can't even describe it. Okay, but relative to each other, Rabba was in a greater state than Rav Zera. So Rabba brought Rav Zera to where he was in terms of his understanding of godly reality, and Rav Zera wasn't a kli for that and experienced klais nefesh. Couldn't stay connected to physical reality and understand such an incredibly powerful level of godly reality. Wow. That's a Rav Zera Baal Yadeze. Therefore, for Rav Zera, it came as a result of this Kloisa Nefesh Mamish. And to such an extent, Nifrad Nishmasei Migufei Kipshute. His soul left his body Kipshute. Mashen Kain Rabba. That was not the case of Rabba. Mitzad Atzmei Loi Baal Kloisa Nefesh. He didn't come to Kloisa Nefesh because Rabba was a big enough kli to incorporate this level of godly reality into himself. Al Pizeh Yesh Lemer Peters. Based on this, now what the Rebbe is going to say pshat in the words. Al Pizeh Yesh Lemer Peters Kam Rabba Shachte Rav Zera. Right, the Lechura at first glance, what should it say? Havilei Lemar Katle, killed him. Shachte, shechted him. Such a bizarre image. Shechted him. Kiyetze b'zeh. Isa b'Gemara, what does the Gemara say? The word v'shachat. Ein v'shachat elav u'mashach. Shachat means to elevate. What are you doing to the animal in shechted? You elevate it. The content of the notion of shechita is meshicha, law, elevating something to a higher level than it was before. Shechein al yedei shechita, by virtue of shechita, machshirim es behema lachilas adam. Shechita is that which allows, it prepares the animal to be eaten by a person, which means the animal can now be incorporated into, it can go from chai into medaber, can now be elevated into a state of human reality. It goes from chai to medaber. Shana says damu basar kipsare, medaber. I mean, when you eat something, it becomes you, it becomes part of you. Right? If you eat too much of it, there's more of you. You put on weight. That's why the Torah allows for shechita, lamreish, despite the fact that despite the fact that it obviously causes pain to the animal. The animal doesn't enjoy the shechita, right? Okay, so tsar balechaim is nisa deraisa. So How can I do that to the animal? Well, okay, Beseder, it's true. There's a momentary pain for the animal, but the animal is being elevated to a higher level, and that's why shchit is mutter. So that you're allowed to do. You're not allowed to harm other people either. The doctors are allowed to operate on people. Why are you allowed to operate on people? You're hurting them. Okay, that's true. That's temporary, but obviously you're bringing them to a better place as opposed to a worse place. So too relative to an animal. How can you shecht an animal? Shecht an animal, even though it causes the animal temporary pain, because you're elevating the animal to a higher level. Okay? That's shachat. So, Kam Rabba v'shachte l'Rav Zera. The Rebbe is going to also deal with the word Kam. Rabba himself got up, and he elevated Rav Zera to a higher level. Hu binyanenu. Hapedish Rabba shachte l'Rav Zera. And what did the Meforshim that we saw say? Kafye lishtes yesmida. He forced him to drink too much. In other words, Rabba was the impetus for bringing Rav Zera to a place when he said forced him to drink too much, so that he poured him another l'chaim. But it also means that he taught him levels of yayin shabbatara that were beyond Rav Zera's ability to incorporate. Now you have to wonder why Rabba did that. No, Rabba's going to explain obviously that Rabba thought that Rav Zera could deal with it. Showed Rabba mashach shachat. V'he'la elevated as Rav Zera l'darga nailis to a higher level shalei be'erach. It's not commensurate to anything Rav Zera had ever experienced before. Al yedei zeh shegila le'seidus v'razin the Torah, by virtue of the fact that he revealed to him secrets of Torah amukim be'yeser, extremely deep, yeser midai, too much, so to speak, be'erach limudei haragil, in accordance to the usual learning, lefi dargasa, in accordance with Rav Zera's normal level of understanding. So Rabba took Rav Zera to where Rabba is, and Rav Zera wasn't a kli for that. But Davar Zahevil, the Kleis Nefesh, Kipshutei Mamish, brought him to a place where his soul left his body, because this revelation of godliness that he was experiencing was too much for him. Too much for him to incorporate into his own state of being. And so he left that. Kamei not of a view, like not of an view. Therefore, there's two things. The intention of the notion of shachte he mamish. It means mamish that the neshama left the goof. It's not only that he fainted, as we saw in the Yavas. But with this, it's not the chas v'shom he murdered him. The opposite is true. It's something very, very lofty. Klois nefesh. The dugma is not a reveal. But we have to explain, and we already did outside, but we have to explain, but wait, hold on a second. But Klais and Nefesh is not what we're interested in. Not interested in people leaving Olam Hazeh. We want people to be in Olam Hazeh. So how could Rava bring Rav Zera to a place where he'll reach Klais and Nefesh? He didn't murder him, obviously not. He shouldn't have done that either. V'zeu gam diuk aloshin kam Rabba shachte l'Rav Zera. This is also a careful reading of the words. We explained the word shachte, and now the Rebbe is explaining the word kam. The l'chura havile shachte Rabba l'Rav Zera. Ma'o kam Rabba. What does it say kam Rabba? Rabba got up. Should have just said Rabba shachte Rav Zera. V'yesh lamar bir b'zeh. Kima, this idea of getting up. Murder al aliyoso shel Rabba instructs regarding the elevation of Rabba himself. Ladarga nailis b'yesik, to a very, very high level. Yakim, tekumai salai, an elevation was to him. Lipsume ad l'yoda. Rabba reached the state of lipsume ad l'yoda, relative even to Rabba's normal state. Ella, shebenegei Rabba atzma, relative to Rabba himself. Mikevin shayulay kelim the Rabba, since he had vessels of Rabba, since he was able to incorporate this incredibly deep and profound understanding of godliness, and still maintain a connection to Olam Hazeh. Einod milvada, yes, Einod milvada. There's nothing other than the Eibishter. I beseder, but I still have to somehow navigate life in Olam Hazeh with the appreciation that true existence is only the Eibishter. What if I saw that so clearly that I couldn't imagine the existence of anything else? That's where Rav Zera went. Rabba also went to that place, but appreciated the fact that he still had to maintain a connection to the relative reality of life in Olam Hazeh, because that's what God wants. Rav Zera, Einod Milvada. Right? Famous story of Chassidus the Alter Rebbe went to a shiur of the Alter Rebbe in Chassidus, and the Alter Rebbe was explaining Ein Milvadei. He walked out of the shiur, Ein Milvadei. There's nothing other than God. He heard it from the Alter Rebbe himself. Ein Milvadei. Ein Milvadei. He's walking on the street being misbained in the Indian of Ein Milvadei. There's nothing but Eibishter. There's no meaning, there's nothing in the world, there's not Ein Milvadei. And he's so immersed in this incredible Izbeinenus of the Indian of Ein Milvadei, he doesn't pay any attention to where he's going. And there's a low-lying branch over the path, and he smacks his head into the low-lying branch. His feet go out from under him. Boom! He lands on the ground. He's wiped out. His head is all scratched up from the bark. His head is killing him because it just got smashed by the wood, by the tree. He's on the ground. And he's sitting there. Ein Milvadei. But boy, does my head hurt. Like if there's Ein Milvadei, how's my head hurt? There's no head. Why is my head hurt? That branch. But there's no branch. Ein Milvadei. And he sits there for half an hour being misbained in the Indian. How can it possibly be? Ein Milvadei. It's true. We just heard it from the Alter Rebbe. It's a pasuk in Chumash. How do you deal with this? So after half an hour, he came to the conclusion: Ein Milvadei, except that branch in my head. That's where most of us are holding. Hopefully, we're holding in the Ein Milvadei, but we're also there's a branch, there's my head, but Ein Milvadei. So Rav Zera went beyond that. Rav Zera went to a place where Mamish Ein Milvadei. Rabba took him to that place. Rabba could be in that place and still understand that on some level there's a branch in a head. There's not really a branch in a head, but on some level there's a branch in it. It's not that Ein Milvadei except. No. Ein Milvadei, but there's a branch in the branch and the head are also part of Ein Milvadei. Rav Zera couldn't go there. Soul left his body. He couldn't be in a body and connect to that level of godly reality. This isn't an indictment of Rav Zera. He got to that level of understanding, which is really astounding, but he wasn't Rabba. Even when he was in a level of Kam, this level of Aliyah Gedayla B'Yeser, a great elevation, Gam Legabe, also relative to Dargal Social Rabba, the normal level of Rabba himself. Rabba himself was elevated from the usual state of Rabba. He had never been to this place, evidently. Still, Lo Yichriach Kleis Nefesh, it didn't necessitate Kleis Nefesh. You could come back. Mashain came in the Gela Rav Zera. That's not the case relative to Rav Zera. Kasher Rabba Gila Loyas in Yoni. When Rabba revealed to Rav Zera those ideas, Shehisig, that Rabba himself comprehended and connected to that day as B'matzav Dekam, when Rabba was in this state of Kam, Al Yedei Zakol Sanavshay. That brought about the Kleis Nefesh of Rav Zera, Shachtel Rav Zera. He elevated Rav Zera to this place, and that was the end of Rav Zera Mamish. Rav Zera passed away. Now you see what Rabba do? Well, let's see. This is the question we asked you. How could, wait a minute, Rabba, you shouldn't bring Rav Zera to Kleis Nefesh. Kleis Nefesh is not a desirable state. It's amazing, it's incredible, but not even a view isn't telling us how great not even a view is. You have to come back down. That's the whole idea. It's save to go up, should experience certain spiritual elevation, but to come back into Elam Hazeh and express it in the way that you treat people, and in the way you use your time, and in the way you they eat a carrot. That's what it's about. It's about being down here in Elam Hazeh. That's Purim. Purim is all about the synthesis of Ruchnius and Gashmius in such a way that they both exist in complete and powerful forms. That's Purim. All physical mitzvahs. Sit and fress at a Purim Suda and drink l'chaims and right? Eat and drink, and yet what? It's all elokus. That's Purim. So how could Rabba bring Rav Zera to this state of Kleis Nefesh? Hepech HaKavana. The opposite of the intention of the Eibusher, Shetzarech Liyos, and how's that expressed in Psukim and brought La'alocha, L'Sheves Yitzra, to to literally to sit. Yitzra, he created us. In other words, to be down here in Eilam Hazeh in a state of settledness. That's what the Eibishter created. He wants us down here. If he didn't want us down here, he wouldn't have put us down here. What's that? Neshamas begufim dafka. Neshamas in bodies. The Eibishter wants neshamas in bodies. He doesn't want neshamas floating around somewhere else. He's got enough of those. But he wants neshamas down here. Ki Rabba Amar. Why did Rabba do that? Rabba Amar v'hirich. He evaluated and appreciated as Rav Zedok. He thought that Rav Zedok, Shu be'erech to Rabba, he was on the same level as Rabba, but lo yava Likkutei Sichos. He didn't think Rav Zedok was going to reach a state of Likkutei Sichos. That Rav Zedok would be able to understand these ideas. On a deeper level, the Rebbe says, you could say like this, that since Rabba had the power to bring him back, right, bring him back to life, which is what lahachzir nishmas Reb Zedek legufay. Rabba was powerful enough to force the neshama of Reb Zedek to go back into his goof. None of us know how you do that, but tzaddikim do know how to do things like that. Lochein loy haya zeh bestira lakavana. Therefore, bringing Reb Zedek to this state of Klais Nefesh wasn't really contradictory lakavana for the intention of neshamas begufim dafka, being a neshama in a goof. Because what did Rabba evidently know he could do? He could put the neshama. If Reb Zedek happened to come to a state of Klais Nefesh, Rabba knew he could bring him back into Eilam Hazeh. Ki Klais Nefesh also Reb Zedek. This state of Klais Nefesh by Reb Zedek. Page 182, it was only something temporary. Through the rest of the days of the day of Purim. Sha'az yeshna chiyuv, that Rav Zera has a chiyuv. Lipsum ad lo yada. Adrabah, what an unbelievable fulfillment of the ad lo yada, that he loses complete consciousness of his own separate existence. Ad lo yada mamish. What does he not know? Anything other than Elokus. Doesn't know of a reality where there's a Haman and there's a Mordechai, right? Where there's a difference between those two. It's in a place where there's only Kedusha, there's only Elokus. Mashein Kain Lamachar, interestingly enough, we mentioned this earlier, when does he bring him back to life? Rav Zera is laying on the ground. He's not breathing. What does Rabba do?
The next day.
Nothing. Rabba says a few more lachaims. Right? The next day he brings him back. Why the next day? I don't understand. Rav Zera died. Call it solo. No, doesn't call it solo. Hatzola happens to be Rabba himself. Right? Doesn't call it solo. Mashenken lamachar la'achrei Purim. And what happens? Shein chiyuv lipsumi ad lo yoda. There's no Indian of ad lo yoda. Va'adarabba, the opposite is true. You have to be back in Eilam Hazeh, take all of the keiches of Purim and bring them back into Eilam Hazeh, so I learn more seriously, daven more seriously, care about other people more seriously, notice them more seriously. Okay. So what did he do? Boruch he brought him back into Eilam Hazeh. Rabbi Fitzi Lipsker was made mashpia in Morristown way back, the first Gilgul of Morristown. So he used to say, and it was very, very powerful. He drilled it into the Talmidim that if a Verbrengen causes you to miss Seder the next day, the Verbrengen was a bracha levatol. If you're not in Seder the day after the Verbrengen, don't Verbring. If Verbrengen means you learn less Torah. Now, when does Seder start? Okay, Seder's not going to start at 7:30 in the morning after Verbrengen that went till 2. Okay. When does Seder start? 10. Okay, then you're there at 10 o'clock. And if you're not there at 10 o'clock, then it was a bracha levatol. I understand. The Verbrengen means I'm less connected to the Eibishter because I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and what the Baruch in Yeshiva is supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be in Seder. That's where he's supposed to be. I'll say something heavy now. I apologize, but just shouldn't be. Hopefully, you're kalim for it, right? You have to be careful when you say things like this because sometimes people aren't kalim for it, and that doesn't mean they experience Klais Nefesh. It means they get down on themselves and depressed, which is worse, right? Rabbi Gruner once told me a story that he was in the office with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe moved the Venetian blinds out of the way, and he looked out the window, and he saw 3 Bachrim sitting on a bench outside on Eastern Parkway. And the Rebbe said as follows: do those Bochum know the pain that it gives me when they're not in Seder? Where are they supposed to be? They're supposed to be sitting inside, learning. The Rebbe said, do those Bochum know the pain that I have that they're not in Seder? So Rabbi Groner said, should I tell the Rosh Yeshiva? And I don't pretend to understand the meaning of it. I'll just tell you what Rabbi Groner said the Rebbe did. The Rebbe went. Which means no. What's the no? I don't know. It's not for us to understand that no. Does that no means, no, the Rosh Yeshiva are not worth it. I don't think that's what it means. I don't know what it means. It means whatever it means. I'm not sure. But the answer was no. Don't tell. But that's a heavy story. Right? Okay. So what are we for bread? For bread, so we'll give the Rebbe Agmas Nefesh. We're giving the Rebbe Agmas Nefesh, we're giving the Eibishter Agmas Nefesh. Why? Because the Rebbe knows what the Eibishter wants. What do we look to the Rebbe for? To help us understand what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from us, right? The tzaddikim know these things better than us, so they guide us very clearly to do what God wants in the deepest way. Right? Okay. So if something's giving the Rebbe Agmas Nefesh, it's because it's not giving the Eibishter pleasure. Why would it give the Rebbe Agmas Nefesh if it's giving the Eibishter pleasure? It'll give the Rebbe pleasure because the Rebbe wants the Eibishter to have pleasure and understands what it is that gives the Eibishter pleasure. All the Rebbe cares about is what the Eibishter gets. Okay, so what the Eibishter wants, which also means to be completely and totally Ibriggev given over to the welfare of the Eibishter's people, the Eibishter's Kindelah. Boy rachmi v'achri. So the next day, what do you do? Brought him back to life. Behetim l'kavon in a way that's consistent with the kavan elyon, with supernal intention, which is what neshamas begufim dafka. To have a neshama and a goof. Al derech, similar to nichnas. This is what Shmuel mentioned before. We saw it earlier. Rabbi Akiva nichnas b'shalom. He entered b'shalom. What does he realize? It's lameshach zman. This experience is a temporary experience because ultimately this is not what I'm all about. I'm not supposed to experience this. My life is not about this unbelievable conscious transcendence. My life is all about being in Eilam Hazeh and revealing godliness in Eilam Hazeh. And afterwards he went back into Eilam Hazeh. Valpi kol anal, based on everything we saw, we've seen. Asi shaper gam hemshech sipur gemara. Right now we also understand the continuation of the Gemara. L'shona, the next year, what? Amar le, what did Rabba say to Rav Zeva? Nesi marva nabit sudas purim ba'adei adari. Let's do it again. Amar le loy b'chol shaisa v'shaisa mislachas nisha. What did he say? Not all the time do miracles happen. Lo yizu bilvad. Not only should Rabba lo hitztair al mashi'ira. Not only was Rabba not sorry about that which happened b'sudas purim the kedemis in the previous years, sudas purim. L'adu Rabba, au contraire. Who his meanness Rav Zayda Larich Sudas Purim Yachtav Gam B'Shana Zay. They told Rav Zayda to come back. What were they going to do? They were going to sit and drink wine and learn Siddur again. Okay, what might happen? Theoretically, what might happen is Rav will get to is Rav going to get to the same place he got last year? I assume not. I assume Rav is going to be able to get to an even better place, right? Because he's grown in the previous year. Okay, so will Rav Zayda be able to handle that? Hit or miss. Okay. Rabba's willing to take the chance, because what does he know? He can bring it back. That's what the Rebbe said already about why Rabba was willing to say these things to Rav Zayr in the first place. Because if it was too much, he could still bring it back. Elad Rabba, he's mean as Rav Zayr, Ladar, Chassidus Purim, Yaakov, Gam B'Shana Zeh. Misech Kavana, Shegam B'Shana Zu. Within the intention that also this year, Yifal Etzer Rav Zayr, Ilu Yigadol Kazeh. That he could bring about in Rav Zera such a great elevation, that might even result in Likkutei Nefesh. The cave and Shetachli Segavona, but since the ultimate intention, Unashamas Begufim, is to be a neshama in a goof, to be a soul in a body, that's what the Eibishter wants. That's why he gave us bodies. He didn't get it wrong. After Purim, if he reaches the state of Likkutei Nefesh, he'll bring him back. Kefishaya Maisa Rav has actually happened b'Shana Shavra, the year before. View Rav Zera Beis Milas. Rav Zera had both milas, both advantages. On one hand, the Ilui de Likkutei Nefesh. On one hand, this great, unbelievable thing called Likkutei Nefesh. Imagine the experience Rav Zera had in this state of Likkutei Nefesh. To experience godliness in such a completely open and revealed way. But also, Vayilu the Milu Kavanah will also have the advantage of the fulfillment of the intention of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, Shal Neshamas Begufim, of being a Neshama and a Guf, because the Rebbe will bring him back. Perhaps in a different way of understanding why he invited him back. Rabbi Choshev, Rabbi thought, that throughout the last year, he's ala Rav Zeder, maybe Rav Zeder was elevated, L'madreg El Yuniyos, to a higher place. Ukfar b'yacholta, and it's already his ability, Lahasig Seidus V'razim Daraisa, Amukim B'yesu, he can now understand and comprehend even deeper ideas about the greatness of God. But often in such a way, Shelo Yavan L'dei Kleis Nefesh V'fayim, maybe Taka won't come to Kleis Nefesh, Rav Zeder will be able to handle it this year. There won't be Peter the Nefesh Mina Guf, the Nefesh leaving the Guf. Val Ze'an Olay Rav Zera, relative to this, Rav Zera said, "And Loi B'chol Shas V'Sashim Yisachar is Nisha." No. Miracles don't happen all the time. I don't want to count on you bringing me back to life. Hu Chofetz U'Mishteikei. He certainly didn't say, "I don't want that experience again." He didn't say that. If he was absolutely sure that the nace could happen, then it's pretty clear from his answer that he would come back. So the experience was not something he was not interested in repeating. But he wasn't sure that he could ultimately come back into Elam Hazeh, and we see Rav Zera is really mamish bottled to the Eibishter because he knows the Eibishter wants him in Elam Hazeh, even though by virtue of staying in Elam Hazeh and not going to Rabba for Purim, he's missing out on this unbelievable spiritual experience. Seder, spiritual experience is very fine, but the Eibishter wants me to be in Elam Hazeh. So he didn't go. He passed it up. That's amazing. Rav Zera was pushing amazing. He desired and longed to this revelation, to this loftiness of the elevation of Kleis Nefesh. Al derech, similar to what Rabbi Kiva said, Masai Yovi Liade, when it will come to my hands, and I'll establish it, I'll fulfill it, meaning who wouldn't want to experience such an incredibly clear and powerful revelation of the Eibishter? Because of this, he wanted to spend Purim with Rabba this year. But what did he say? Nevertheless, but since the ultimate purpose of reality in Neshamas Begufim is to be a Neshama and a Guf, he worried that after he reached the state of Kleis Nefesh, which was so amazing and so incredible, Shuv loy tirtze. Now look at the language of the Rebbe. Shuv loy tirtze nishmasei loredes. Perhaps his soul will not want to come down, ulislavesh, and to be clothed begufa. Maybe his soul's desire to stay where it is will be so powerful that it won't agree to come back and be clothed in the body, and Rabba won't be able to overcome it. Because it's so beautiful here. I want to go back there. So that he didn't want to do. Even though it's unbelievable, serious nefesh for this, because imagine the pleasure he experienced when he was there. So pleasant that the soul didn't want to leave there. Umi yodeya in gamba pamazeh hazu. And who knows that also this time, Yatzliach Rabba, that Rabba will be successful, Lifol Nes. Says a Nes, it's a miracle. The nature of the Neshama is, what's the Neshama compared to? A ner, a candle, a fire, a flame. And what is the flame trying to do? Go up to its source. But what's holding it down? The wick. Oh, okay. But the nature of the flame is to go up and disconnect from the wick. But the wick's powerful enough to hold the flame down. But if the flame leaves the wick, who says it's going to go back to the wick? So that's a nace, because mitzad the etza, because of the mitzad the teva of the neshama, it would want to go up. To do something beyond the nature of the neshama. Kazusha nishmas Rav Zera tirtza. What's the nace that the neshama should want? Later, at least lavish other pambaguf come back again. Miracles don't happen all the time. We're going to finish. La locha nif. That's the end of the story. Unbelievable pshat. This is one of those sichos. You run into them now and then, and it's always quite astounding. So you learn, the Rebbe explains something, and you really do wonder, how did anybody understand this for this Gemara? So you're talking 1,500 years. So for 1,500 years, how did anybody understand this story? Sometimes the Rebbe does it to Psukim and Chumash, and you ask, how did anybody understand this story in Chumash for 3,300 years? No, how could you understand it without this secret? It's just astounding.
Is this really no one brought this shot? I mean, like it is.
No.
It's incredible that it's.
This is the Rebbe's secret. No, you can't find this anywhere else. Yeah, if you were to ask the Arizal, would he explain it this way? He might. I don't mean, didn't write it down.
Sure.
It's unbelievable. והנה להלוכה נפסק בשולחן ערוך שיש חיוב לפסומים בפרם עד ליודע. There's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch that there's an obligation to drink more l'chaims than you would normally drink on Purim to reach a state of Ad Yoda. And interestingly enough, mitzad the basic halacha, we talked about this yesterday, if a person knows that he can't do this without undesirable things happening, then he shouldn't do it. But basically, what's the halacha? Ve'ein chosheshin, we don't worry, she's stayif mizeh, that it will come as a result of this, shum davar bilti ratzui, things that are undesirable. If a person knows they will, so don't do it. Umizeh muvan gam b'nageh l'teichen aruchni. This is also understood relative to the spiritual content, shel shtiyas yain, ad lo yoda. Dahainu, what does that mean? Lilmaid ba'efen, to learn Torah in general, Chassidus in particular. Ba'efen sheba'avosa tishge. Rambam, Hilchas Tshuva, that through your love I'll become meshuga, I'll become lovesick. Seides, yayin atara, ad shemagia lamatzav shel shichris u'bitl mitziyusa. Person shouldn't be worried about learning the deepest ideas in Chassidus, which theoretically could bring the person to a point where he stops thinking that life in Eilam Hazeh is important. Now really that means he's not understanding Chassidus properly. We were talking about this yesterday in Zal, and it's important now, so I have 4 minutes. So I'll mention it. It was with no one here, so. There's a saying, we just learned it in the Yom Ein Chassid Am Haaretz. You can't be a chassid if you don't know how to learn a page of Gemara. Doesn't mean you have to know how Gemara, Rashi, Taisvus, Rishonim. If you don't have a certain understanding of that book, that you can learn that book yourself, on some level, you're missing the meat and potatoes of Yiddishkeit. What does that also mean? It means he's not going to ever understand Chassidus properly. Because you can't understand Chassidus if you don't know how to learn a page of Nigla. Our Chassidus. Because it'll always be something sort of fuzzy and warm and inspirational, but it will never be Torah. A real idea that I have to understand what the question is and what the answer is and how the answer is answering the question, what I've learned now that I didn't know before, and the whole mahalach of the Maimer that we interrupted in order to learn this. What Maimer? What was the Rebbe doing? The whole Maimer, explaining in great detail the Maimer, the Friedrich Rebbe. Why the order and why he explained this first and why he explained. If I can't learn, I won't understand that. I can read it in English, but say it, okay, it'll be nice, but I'll never really understand it. Because those things bother the Rebbe when he's learning the Friedrich Rebbe's Maimer and he comes to unbelievable understandings as a result of these real questions. Just have to, right? That's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is if I'm learning Chassidus, and by learning Chassidus, I don't come to the conclusion that I have to break my neck to learn a page of Gemara, then I didn't understand the Chassidus. I didn't get it. Because what are the Rebbeim? They were saying that Chassidus, what do they want from you? To get blisters on your brain learning a page of Gemara also. I didn't get the Chassidus if it doesn't cause me to be Meser Nefesh to learn a page of Gemara. And I just say and learn Chassidus all day. Then that's a neshama, not in a goof. I just want the neshama, I don't want the goof. Right? What was in neshama's begufim? What's neshama? Chassidus. What's goof? Nigla. Neshama's begufim. Right? Both Nigla and Chassidus. That's a chassid. That's what the Rebbe wants. The Rebbe got it over the head. We don't say from who. When the Rebbe started teaching Rashi in Farbrengens, every Farbrengen there was a Rashi Sicha. When did the Rebbe start doing that? Who knows? Just a little history.
Oh, it was really early, right?
It was really early. Okay, I don't know what that means.
So it was
His
like right
mother's
after.
passing.
Exactly. During the year of saying Kaddish for his mother, Rebbe Simchana. Tavshin Chafei. Right? So that's when the Rebbe started saying, 15 years after Rebbe came, Rebbe started saying Rashi Sichos. And there were people who complained. Doesn't matter who the people are. And the Rebbe said, he's getting a schnell, he's getting a... The Rebbe taught Nigla. People said, Mapitom, in Farbrengen you taught Nigla? Whoever taught Nigla in a Farbrengen? I Rebbe. I taught Nigla in a Farbrengen. He would teach a Rashi, I'll be Nigla. Again, he'd say at the end, V'yayna shel Torah, but the whole Sicha was a Nigla Sicha, Pshat and Rashi, and this question and that question. And if a person can't learn, he can't possibly understand what the Rebbe is talking about. Okay. Neshamas begufi. Both. It's also Purim. Kabbalah Torah. What's Kabbalah Torah mean? I accept the Torah. What's the Torah? Nigla and Chassidus. That's the Torah. Not just Chassidus. Yes, it was mentioned yesterday that in Gemara Shiur, the Rabbi, what Rabbi Vashansky said about having the Likkutei Sichos under the Gemara. Okay, beseder. Shh. Meaning when your Chavrusa walked away, okay, beseder, you can learn a couple of lines of a Sicha. Then he came back. Go back to the Gemara. Well, what might the Sicha be? It might be a Rashi Sicha. A lot of Sichas in Likkutei Sichos are Rashi Sichas. Okay, let's finish. So even though we might be worried a person is going to learn Chassidus and go Meshuggah, and that is a word. Some people go Meshuggah, they lose it. Why did I bring up what I just brought up? What's one of the things they might think? I don't have to learn Nigla, I just learn Chassidus all day. Why do I need Nigla? No. No, I didn't get it. I didn't get it. What?
Nigla's practicality.
Nigla's Gemara. Revealed Torah. I didn't get it. I didn't get the Chassidus. How long does it take the Alter Rebbe to tell you how important it is to sit down and learn a Mishnah and learn a Gemara in Tanya? What chapter does the Alter Rebbe tell you that? Chapter 5. Okay. By chapter 5, you're already learning about the fact that the greatest unity you can experience with the Kodesh Baruch is to understand that if Reuven claims this and Shimon claims this, the psak is this and this. That's what the Rebbe says.
Amazing.
Okay. Wow. So I have to know how to read the book that talks about Reuven claiming this, and it might be hard. Okay, it's not fair. There are these people who grew up and they somehow learned young enough so that now they know how to do it. Some of them do, some of them don't. Right? A guy who sits here and works hard at learning Gemara for 2 years, 3 years, will basically be able to sit and learn B'chavrusa with any shaliach who walks in the doors of the yeshiva. And he might even be better than him. That's just the truth. Okay. But could he sit and learn B'chavrusa? Absolutely. No problem. If he puts in the time, you got to put in the time. Anyone else? Is it absolutely necessary to get to that point? Well, that's nice. Because someone who doesn't is lacking. Well, it's like anything else, right? If I could do it better, so it'd be nice to do it better. But it might be a person's in a situation where just objectively that's going to be very, very difficult to do. Okay, but I still have to sit down and figure out how to learn a page of Gemara, and sitting and learning a page of Gemara has to be part of your everyday life for the rest of your life. Right? Halavai, we're all at a state that if we didn't learn a page of Gemara that day, and not a whole page, meaning sit down and learn some Talmud Bavli, that we feel like it's like we didn't eat lunch. It's like one of those weird days. When you're married, there might be a day you don't see your wife. Right? It's like a weird day. Like you left before she got up, and then you came home, but she was gone, and somehow and you ended up going to sleep before she came home. You didn't see your wife the whole day. It's the weirdest thing. I didn't see my wife. Okay. And if you didn't see your God in a piece of Talmud Bavli the whole day, so that's weird. That's the same with Chassidus. But both. Okay. Purim nitan akayach. Look what it says. And this even means that this year it's amazing. Purim is so powerful, it's even going to reach into the 16th of Adar. This year, right? Sunday. Purim nitan akayach l'kol echad v'echad Yisrael. Purim gives the kayach to every single Jew. Well, let me translate that properly because I fetch at you all the time that you have to read the words, right? On Purim, it is given it doesn't say it gives. It is given, it's passive. It's given the power to every single Jew. Kol chad v'chad, every single Jew, b'chol me'adecho, in the level beyond their general level, be'erech, relative, shiur delay. Every single Jew gets the level of b'chol me'adecho on Purim. Me'adecho, your ma'oid. What's your ma'oid? A level beyond your normal level. Be'erech shiur delay. You can come to an appreciation of Elokus that's more powerful than your normal everyday appreciation of Elokus if you do Purim right. Purim is a Verbringen that's an unbelievably special Verbringen because of the Keiches of Purim. L'kayim shtiya zu, to fulfill this drinking. La'gia l'dveikus kazu, what's the drinking? The drinking, yes, okay, we drink l'chaim. So what are we drinking l'chaim? To open ourselves up to Pnimius Torah, to open ourselves up to the godliness all around us. God is great. You don't have to do what he did next. Shtiya zu, and since some of you are coming to my house, there's a rule in my house that you're not allowed to do it inside. You have to go outside. Not allowed to be sick inside. Okay, so that's the rule. Now, you don't have to be sick. You shouldn't be sick. For some people, they whatever, they just didn't feel well. Okay, say that. Right. Even the Rebbe once got sick. But that was because the wine was bad. Once it was bad wine for Havdalah and Pesach and Tavshim Memtes. So the Rebbe felt sick to his stomach because the wine was off. And they stopped Keshel Bracha because the Rebbe wasn't feeling it. The wine was off. L'kaim shtiya zu la'gia l'dveikus kazu b'seidus atera. Right, to come to a point of appreciating Seidus Atam Vatelis Mitziyusa that ultimately nullifies his own existence. Purim, we can come to a place where we realize that Mamesh, the Eibishter, like they say, right, the Eibishter is Als and Als is Eibishter. The Eibishter is everything and everything is the Eibishter. Mi bli chashash, without the worry, shemi aveda zu, that from this aveda yave lidei anhaga, that he'll come to a state of his beidudus, of disappearing by himself to places, upricious mina ilam, and he'll separate himself from the world. He won't take his responsibility in the physical world seriously. Hepach hakavana shel l'shavas yisur, which is the opposite of the intention that he's supposed to be in Eilam Hazeh. El adrabah, the opposite is true. Al yedei kiyam achiv zeh b'yom Purim, by doing Purim right. Yizvasef lo, it'll be increased in him chayus, vitality, b'avedas Hashem, in his service of God, b'meshech kol l'shana kula, throughout all the year, b'asiyas dirlei Baruch b'tachtenim, by making a dwelling place for God in the lower realms. Nichnas b'shalom, he'll enter into Purim with the right intentions. V'yatza b'shalom, he'll come out of Purim the right way. Freilich and Purim.
Thank you very much.
Something else, much. Just unbelievable. How does anybody understand anything without the Lubavitcher Rebbe?